I've said this before in my Empire Strikes Back review. Sometimes my job is really hard. Sometimes I have to review a movie that is so by and large loved by so many people that I give my own opinion and it's against the general consensus and I receive a lot of hate. Or I review a movie that is vice versa and receives a lot of hate from the general consensus. And I receive a lot of hate because I say, hey, I don't think the movie is that bad. But then there's also another aspect of my job, and that is reviewing movies that I do agree with the general consensus and are as bad as everyone says that they are. Today's movie is one of those cases. And if you know your Gamera history, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And also, if you read the title, of course, you know what I'm talking about. Today, I will be discussing the extremely infamous and extremely horrendous 1980s Gamera Super Monster. And joining me today is fellow kaiju YouTuber KPF. Say hello, boy.
Why do I do this to myself?
I thought about saying that myself too. And it's funny I do bring up Empire Strikes Back. It's funny that I bring up Empire Strikes Back because it refers to a con that I have with this movie later in the video.
God.
So, yes, indeed, Gamera Super Monster. We finally stooped to this low. So, Gamera Super Monster, like I said, is a very infamous film. And, Sean, enough with the fish jokes. It's not even remotely fitting here. Make some Star Wars puns if you like. Anyway, so yes, Gamera Super Monster is a very infamous film, both production-wise, cinema-wise, and especially kaiju movie-wise. So as I said in the last video, Gamera versus Zigra was when Dai really started to scrape the bottom of the barrel, and they also went bankrupt right after, well, Last Jedi was awful. They went bankrupt right after Gamera versus Zigra in 1972, which further canned future plans to make Gamera movies, including Gamera versus Gara Sharp, as I mentioned before, which involved a giant green snake sticking his tongue down Gamera's throat to steal his power. What? However, in 1974, Dai managed to reopen its doors and start making movies again when they were bought out by Tokumo Shoten Publishing Company. I don't believe they were specifically a film studio, but they did partner up with Dai to start making movies again so that they could exploit them for their properties. Of course, Dai's most popular franchise being Gamera. However, Dai soon quickly found itself in more financial trouble because of their own stupidity. And Dai figured, let's make another Gamera movie to try to make a few bucks and salvage what we can. And the result of that attitude was Gamera Super Monster. And needless to say, Gamera Super Monster was a complete and utter flop. It bombed at the box office and barely made any money enough for Dai to salvage whatever it could and was essentially disintegrated afterwards. This led to the dormancy of the Gamera franchise for another 15 years. Gamera Super Monster is also infamous amongst other giant monster movie fans for being one of, if not the absolute worst kaiju movie ever made. And many people, including myself, calling it the Godzilla's Revenge of Gamera movies. Of course, this being because Gamera Super Monster is made up of almost entirely, well, not entirely, it suffers from a lot of the same issues that Godzilla's Revenge has, having a really kitschy, child-friendly plot, having a really lazy, really lacklusterly put together story, and being comprised of a lot of stock footage. However, in my opinion, compared to Gamera Super Monster, Godzilla's Revenge looks like an Oscar-worthy contender.
I'm sure Sean likes to hear that. Oh,
So, KPF, what is your personal history with Gamera Super Monster?
well, I regrettably agreed to review it about a couple weeks ago. Then I watched it, and then I suffered. That's about it. That's about it.
Well, my history with Gamera Super Monster, of course, reading up on Gamera movies. I of course would come across Gamera Super Monster, and I would read the plot and I'd read the production notes, and I would just say to myself, "Okay, that just sounds like Godzilla's Revenge." So I always avoided this movie for the longest time. The longest time. And it actually wasn't until I did my first Gamera Super Monster review when I finally sat down to watch the movie for the very first time. And surprisingly, I actually was kind of let down because I was expecting a movie that was infuriatingly bad. Whereas I actually got a movie that was just facepalm inducing bad. However, on this second viewing, I got what I expected the first time. It's just an infuriating sit because no one creative choice in this movie works whatsoever. And Sean, if you watch this movie, what's left of your sanity will be broken. Here, let me put into perspective for you. It is the Paranormal Activity, the ghost dimension of monster movies for you. Only he will get that joke, and he knows exactly what I'm talking about. So, yeah, Gamera Super Monster. So, let's just breeze. Fuck this movie. Let's just breeze right through the plot because that won't take long. So when an evil alien called Xanon, which flies around in a ship that totally does not look like an Imperial Star Destroyer from Star Wars, goes around the galaxy destroying planets and comes across Earth and wants to enslave it. And of course, at first, all hope seems lost. And the Earth's resident superheroes, just simply referred to as the Space Women, are powerless to stop them because they're shitty superheroes that have no powers. Or no weapons, excuse me. And then they must enlist the help of a young boy who has a special connection with the giant turtle Gamera. And the friend of all children then reenacts his stock footage fights with Gauss, Zigra, Virus, Jiger, Guiron, and finally Barugan, in that order in the film. And then once all the stock footage is depleted and the filmmakers just truly don't give a shit anymore, Gamera decides to sacrifice his life to destroy Xanon once and for all, kamikazing the Star Destroyer and giving us an explosion that is very, very, very piss poor when compared to the original Death Star explosion from the original Star Wars. And the shitty Superman ripoff females are free to not do shit and not save the world. And thus ends the film. That pretty much is the plot. If I was to go into a more in-depth plot, it would be an exercise in both futility and insanity. So that's all the plot that you need to know. You can't burp, dude. So, do you have any pros with this movie?
Fuck. I actually gotta go back to this, and my browser crashed there for a minute. But I believe I have. Let's see. I know I do have a few pros. Let's see.
Oh
There's
my.
not many. I think I see two.
He thinks he sees two.
I have two. I have two.
Why don't you be as in-depth as possible with these two pros? Because that'll be really hard.
All right. So, my first pro was that the scenes when the space girls shrunk into like the little box and we had the character, what the fuck is his name, Kiichi, something like that, when he was like looking at him.
10,000 inches, that's what I call him.
The effects there didn't look too bad compared to some of the other effects in the movie. Can't go much more in depth with that. And the other pro that I have, my second one, is that the actual hand-to-hand combat scenes were laughably bad.
Yeah,
but they were so bad it was good though.
I was laughing.
By it.
I was laughing watching that scene.
Flip this way and roll that way and do a friggin' cartwheel. It's like, oh god, but it was still kind of entertaining. That's it. That's all I have.
So, do I have any pros for Gamera Super Monster? No. This is a Jacksonite Studios first, where I have nothing good to say about a movie. It's all bad. So why don't you get into your cons, KPF? How many do you have?
I gotta count it. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I have 12.
I have
All right,
8.
let's go. So my first one is at the opening of the movie, and this is actually 11 because I'm going to combine this with a different one, I believe. Is that in the beginning? What's with all the cartoon imagery? Like, why are there just like cartoons?
Oh yeah.
At the beginning of the movie, it felt like I was watching Godzilla vs. Gigan when they had those comic scenes. They were showing panels like, whoa, like, it was like, what the hell? And then there was one point later in the movie where Gamera is like fighting, or not fighting, but like flies right next to a cartoon. Like, what the hell is happening? Oh my god, I hated that. All right, next up. In a nutshell, this movie to me felt like it was just a huge parody of many properties, probably including Gamera itself. And I mean, obviously, Star Wars is one.
I'm guessing you not being the biggest Star Wars fan.
I kind of got reminded of Superman a little bit when they were in that like awful set. It was like a plain white set, and it was like, it's kind of like the Fortress of Solitude kind of thing. At least I got that.
More like the Fortress of White Sheets, because that's literally what they used.
Yeah, that was so bad. And then my next one is bad effects. The first time we see one of the space girls fly, it's absolutely awful. When they make their car like fly in the air and off the street and transport into like a parking spot, that was really bad. And then when the bad girl, but the bad guy lady, who I can't remember her name for shit, the one that the boy calls sister, but he calls everyone sister.
Let's just call him Xanendorf.
Oh wait, I actually know her name. It's Gerug or something like that. Gerug or something like that.
I just call her Xanendorf.
She was in her black and yellow suit, and she like transformed back to human.
Wonder Woman style.
You can see the daylight just drop behind her. Like they filmed the scene like 3 separate hours. Like literally it changed to night. I don't know if you saw that, but if you
That's one of her two special abilities. One being when she transforms, she can also transform daylight to nightlight. And the other is when she's having a fight with the main superhero girl, she can magically transform herself into a stuntman. Because that happens. And then she transforms back into a female in the snap of a finger. It's never explained.
Okay. Done with that one because we still have more to go. So my next one, number 4, is that this movie, in a nutshell,
boring,
basically combines every single Gamera movie stereotype. They have the stupid forced random messages in there like comic books are bad for you kids, stop with the reading comic books, kind of like humanity, this is what we get, and Gaius was sent by the gods, and all that stupid shit that they try to throw in there, stupid messages like this comic books being bad was a message throughout. And another thing I hated, which happened in, I believe, Giron, was there was more of that, oh, you're Asian, so you have to worry about school and not anything else. So stupid. But, and then, I mean, the boy in this movie, I will give him props for probably having the best acting out of all the children that played in these movies. He had the most character.
You've yet to see Gamera the Brave, so you'll probably eat your words.
Okay, so he basically has like the most character depth from any of these kids that I've seen, other than Bill. I'm a Boy Scout, or I'm just a stupid kid with a bunch of cunts for moms. You know what I mean? So at least this kid kind of has something. So I will give him props, and then I'm not really gonna put that as a pro because I still didn't like him, but. Next up, I think this is 5. Gamera looks so bad in this movie, and one of the reasons that I really don't like him in this movie. Here's how they made the Gamera effects for this film. I think I figured it out when watching it. They took a shot of this Gamera in front of a green screen. He roared 2 or 3 times, and they used that shot for I think the entire movie. Every single time you see Gamera from that kind of side or diagonal angle in this movie, he just roars a couple times from the same angle, the same way, the same time, every time. And then they filmed a couple scenes from the back, but that might have been not even an actual suit. So, yeah, exactly what Nick is doing. He looked like a fucking brain-dead piece of shit. Next up, one thing I really hated about this movie is the kid's mom, because obviously not only is the enemy girl in this movie a creep, so technically are the other space girls. Like, why would, as a mother, why would you let your child just leave? And then why would you be okay with your child just interacting with a bunch of adults, especially ones that are obviously up to no good and are obviously trying to kidnap your child? I hated this mom. She was a bitch. 6. I think that was 6. Yep, that was 6. One huge plot hole with this movie, which would have deemed the entire movie irrelevant if this plot hole wasn't here, the movie would have been over in a second. Basically, the bad guy character is sent to Earth to basically some shit about destroying the Earth and the monsters and whatnot. But then after that plan fails, they just use the Xanding ship, decide they just want to destroy Earth with this Xanding ship. Why did they do that before any of this? Why couldn't they just come to Earth and just fucking shot at the Earth and destroyed it? Because they were going to do that in the end when the plan failed. So why didn't they just start with that? You know what I mean? That was stupid. And 8. When Gamera crashes into the ship at the end, sacrifice, kamikaze in Japanese fashion, I literally had no idea that he actually crashed into the ship.
Because the way it's executed is Gamera is slowly flying towards the Xanding spaceship, and then there's a quick shot of Gamera just kind of nudging into it. Then there's just a big bright flashing light. It's like, what?
And then they zoom in on the ship, like from hundreds of feet away, and it's like, is that supposed to mean he crashed?
What the fuck does that mean?
I actually had to rewind because I had no clue what happened.
Said really nobody watching Gamera Super Monster.
1, 2, 3.
9.
All right. I actually cried when the boy cried in this movie. Not because it was sad, but because the movie was still on, and because the acting was terrible, and he had no reason to cry. He literally just watched a bunch of stock footage of Gamera beating monsters and then saw a puppet crash, but not really crash into a giant ship. But for some reason, he was so compelled to cry, and I had to join him because I suffered through this piece of shit.
10.
Done.
That's all your cons?
Done. And by the way, this movie was about a 40-minute watch for me because I totally fast forward all the stock footage.
It was about an hour watch for me because, nah. Well, this movie literally, it has 32 minutes of stock footage. It's 92 minutes long, so it is literally 1/3 stock footage. So, my cons. Con number 1, the music is awful. All of the music is just horrible to listen to. I thought it was bad in Gamera versus Zigra. I thought the music was bad in Gamera versus Zigra. But it's boring to listen to in Zigra, but here it's annoyingly bad. And to some, that may be worse. To some, that may not be as bad. I think it's as bad. But the music in this movie is just awful. Shinsuke Kikuchi, you are not a good music composer. And you are certainly ain't no Akira Fukube.
The opening theme, when the Star Destroyer was going.
Yeah, let's just call it a Star Destroyer. Fuck it.
It sounded like the Star Wars theme.
Yeah, it legitimately does.
It was like, dun, dun, and I was like, oh. Like, what?
Con number 2 is that all of the characters are just dreadful. The Captain Zenendorf, she's terribly acted. She's terribly written. The narrator for Xanon itself is terrible. It's very grainy. It just sounds terrible. The space women, the only actor in this movie who looks like she's actually trying is the main female who plays the main superhero.
Yes.
She looks like she's the only one who's trying with this movie. And I'll also admit she's also pretty attractive if you ask me. But her two sisters, I'll just call them. Her two sisters, they're bland, boring, and uninteresting. They stand around, they look so lost. Like, what the fuck am I doing here?
I know.
But yeah, the main one is tolerable. That's the only character in this movie who is tolerable to watch. Also because I think she's attractive. That's just me.
Oh God.
And Thousand Itches, as I like to call him, or K-Ichi. Because K, thousand, itchy, itch. Thousand Itches is just super, super, super annoying and is a complete fucking retard. As KPF talked about earlier, why would you go hang out with this random creep of a woman and who's clearly up to no good? And why would you hang out with these 3 females who look at you like a piece of meat? I swear I have a theory that had this movie ever gotten a sequel, it would have been 1,000 Inches became an adult, and that dude and the main female space woman would have been screwing like bunny rabbits.
Oh,
I
God.
legitimately believe that. I legitimately believe that. But thankfully, this movie did not get a sequel, so we don't have to see that kind of thing. But still, it is fun to think about.
Oh, fuck.
So yeah, all of the characters except the main female space woman, she's tolerable. But other than that, especially 1,000 Itches, he's as annoying as if you had to scratch 1,000 itches all over your body at the same time. I'm just going to say he's the most annoying kid character in any Gamera movie. He barely beats out the two from the last movie. Con number 3 is that the story overall is really fucking lame. It's another hackneyed alien invasion plot that rips off Star Wars, rips off Superman, and parodies the entire kaiju genre by including all the stock footage from all previous 7 Gamera movies. Con number 4 is that the superheroes are pretty damn shitty.
Oh my God.
They make no effort to save the world whatsoever, yet because they say we can't fight because we have no weapons. Well, then you're shitty superheroes.
Yeah, you suck.
They make absolutely zero effort to save the world from any of the monsters' attacks or any of Xanon's attacks. They are piss fucking poor.
Mm-hmm.
Con number 5 is that, oh my God, is this movie shameless in ripping off Star Wars?
Oh.
Now, I've seen a fair amount of Star Wars knockoffs in my life. Like, I've seen Star Crash. I sat through the first 30 minutes of The Shape of Things to Come. Spaceball. Well, that's not really a ripoff. That's a parody, but it's good. I don't, but I don't like it because I've seen it so many times. It's just not funny to me anymore. But yeah, I've seen a fair amount of Star Wars ripoffs, and I gotta say, this movie may be one of the, maybe not necessarily one of the worst, but definitely one of the most shameless. Like, if you look at Xanon's spaceship, it is straight up a Star Destroyer.
Yep.
There is absolutely no question or doubt about it. It is a fucking Star Destroyer.
No, but you have to remember, it's got like a couple parts that are divided, so that means it's totally different.
Not at all. Pain. Con number 6 is that this movie also is a big ripoff of Superman. Which, of course, the first Superman movie came out in 1978. Superman 2 came out in 1980. Star Wars came out in 1977. Empire Strikes Back also came out in 1980, just like this movie. See, there's a reason I mentioned Empire Strikes Back. But yeah, the 3 superheroes, they're clearly ripoffs of Superman. They have similar suits that are made of all spandex, though at least here they're more appealing to look at because they're attaching themselves to an attractive woman. But they have red capes.
My God, stop.
They have red capes. They have spandex suits. They have red boots. They fly. They apparently have super strength. They are straight up Superman ripoffs, and it's lame.
God.
Con number 7 is, yes, the stock footage. There is, not counting the anime stock footage, I'll get to that in a minute, counting all the kaiju stock footage, there is 32 minutes of Gamera stock footage. They use stock footage from every single previous Gamera movie, including the original. And they also pull a Gamera versus Virus, where Xanon has Gamera under mind control and sends him on a rampage throughout Tokyo, using stock footage from the first Gamera movie. Though at least here, they only showcase it through a TV, so the screen is red. So at least they were kind of trying to hide the fact that the footage is black and white. It's still completely stupid.
Isn't that kind of sad that because they reused it in Virus, it's stock footage of a stock footage scene?
Yeah.
That's so sad. I don't think I've ever
Same
seen
for the
this
jets
before.
taking off, same for the jet stock footage used in Gamera versus Gauss, which also was used in Gamera Super Monster. So it's like what Brendan Tenold said. It's stockception, totally. But yeah, all the stock footage. I mean, it's really jarring to go from Gauss to Zigra because those two Gamera designs are completely different. Then from Zigra to Jiger, well, actually, no, it's not really jarring because same suit. But from
Jiger to Barugan is like what?
Jiger to Barugan, especially when the special effects. Well, the monsters look similar, but the special effects are completely different because one is just okay and the other is really good. And why end on Barugan?
Should have started. I mean, it would have made sense if they did it chronologically.
Whatever. So yeah, the stock footage is just pain. It's boring to sit through because it's literally a half hour of a movie that A, I've already seen, and B, I've already reviewed. So yeah. Con number, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is the anime stock footage. Now there's only like 4 minutes or maybe 5 minutes of stock footage from I think it's Space Battleship Yamato that it's taken from. I'm not a big anime fan, so I don't really know. But the anime stock footage sticks out like a sore thumb. It makes no fucking sense story-wise. I think it's implied that it's supposed to be like a dream sequence that 1,000 Inches is having.
Oh, yeah. That would make sense.
But it's not really explained, and it just leaves you scratching your head and just wondering, what the fuck am I watching? And then, of course, con number 9 is that what little special effects that this movie has is just absolutely awful.
It's like a fan film.
The blue screen effects are just terrible. I thought they were bad in Gamera versus Guiron. Pain.
No, not as bad as when Fierce was taking its final form, and when it was at its biggest, you could see through the tentacles.
Yeah, literally, that is true. I'd say it's as bad as that. And it looks like we got a couple. We got a couple people here. We have Carnage. Hello, Carnage. I didn't see your.
I put out a little shout out thing.
Legendary Goji is here. Golden Marcus.
Yep, they're my boys.
Oh, okay.
You know what we should have done? Oh, you know what would have been a great idea? You should have just put stock footage from all of your reviews of this.
Yeah, but then I would have been ripping off Zazibar if I did that, and I don't want to do that, so...
Yeah.
Even though I've been quoting Zazibar and Brendan Tenold a lot through the Gamera series review. Call it just paying homage.
They should have had... Okay, one thing that would have made this movie great is if they had Kenny come back.
Get out of here. So yeah, all the special effects are terrible. The blue screen effects look awful. The composite shots look terrible. And also the scene where Gamera, it's stock footage from Gamera versus Jiger when he's walking away, and then he walks past a poster from a kaiju franchise that I've never heard of and knocks it over. It looks like it's straight out of a 90s sitcom. And 90s sitcoms are infamous for having really bad green screen effects. And the amount of new Gamera footage in this movie amounts to about 2 minutes, which consists of, like what KPF said, is about 4 or 5 shots of what I really do think are just the same shots of Gamera being repeated over and over again. You never see him standing. He's always in the Superman flying pose. He just roars and flies and roars and flies, and it's just stupid. So with all that being said, this before I move on, I actually do want to pose an idea that Dai could have done. Despite their financial difficulties, I think that if for a return Gamera movie that they could have done is make a movie called Gamera Battle Royale, which essentially would be an all-out Royal Rumble of Gamera fighting, kind of Gamera fighting all his previous foes, though Dai actually shot new footage, because I'm pretty sure that no Gamera kaiju costume went through the amount of hell that Toho kaiju costumes went through. I don't care what you say, those suits should have been in relatively good shape. Even the shitty ones like Virus, they should have just had Gamera with all new footage just fight all of his previous foes in one big monster Royal Rumble. And then for essentially it would have been like a big version of both Final Wars and Destroy All Monsters, and then have Xanon actually be another alien monster and show up at the end to fight Gamera. Gamera kills Xanon, saves the world, and then flies off. I'm sure that movie would have been a pretty big success if it was made. But no, they decided to take the cheap and lazy route and just use stock footage.
That would have been a good time for the Godzilla Gamera crossover, because Toho might have been like, well, you know, Godzilla's been in hiatus and Gamera's been in hiatus. Why don't we just come back together? That would have been cool.
I got a story about that for you when I review Gamera the Brave.
All right.
But with all that said, this movie is just absolutely awful. I do not recommend it, despite what KPF's compilation of me says. I would recommend Gamera Super Monster. I don't.
You were saying if you want like a shitty movie, I would recommend Gamera Super Monster. So I just cut that beginning out.
Hello, Raiju Kaiju. You show up at the very end, but whatever. Appreciate the view. So yeah, this movie is terrible. The only way that I would recommend Gamera Super Monster is if you're either A, you have the utmost desire to watch every single kaiju movie ever made. 2, you're a diehard Gamera fan, and you're one of those few who likes Gamera more than Godzilla, though and then a Godzilla fan. Or 3, if you're just a major glutton for punishment and you just like to watch really shitty movies. In which, in that case, yeah, Raiju Kaiju, do not watch this movie. Because if you don't like the original, actually no, if he doesn't like the original Gojira, he actually might like Gamera Super Monster. And if he also likes Kung Pao, actually, yeah, I think Raiju, you would like this movie because it's a massive kaiju parody. Anyway, so what do you think my rating for this movie is? It's a 0, a full-on 0 out of 10. It's an awful, 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 awful movie, and everybody who made this movie should be ashamed. Which is exactly what happened to 2 recurring writers and directors on the Gamera series. Nissan Takahashi, who was the writer, and of course Noriaki Yuasa, who directed nearly the entire Gamera series except for Barugan. Well, Showa Gamera series. He was so embarrassed at what Tokum Shoten did to the Gamera series that he was the one who decided, let's just kill off Gamera and kill off this franchise. So KPF, what's your rating for this movie? Do I even have to guess?
10 out of 10. 0 out of 10. 0. It's a 0. I mean, there's like nothing good.
No.
I've never felt this way about anything that I've ever seen, where I really have nothing good to say. Like, literally nothing.
So, with that being said, post your motherfucking comments down below. Hit the like button, please. Hit the subscribe button, please. And share this video with your friends. Shut up, Sean. Check out KPF's channel. He hasn't posted any videos in a while, but that's just because he's back at school. Though, what is your next video going to be?
My review of Godzilla 2014 with a pair of Kokig, and then there's soon after that, like right after Kong Skull Island with Pierce.
Okay. Look forward to those. I don't know the progress on those, but look forward to those.
And if any news comes out, there'll be video.
Look forward to those. And look forward to either later today or tomorrow where I review a vastly superior film that my opinion on has kind of changed in the last year or so since I've seen it. When I review the reboot to the Gamera series with 1995's Gamera, Guardian of the Universe. Look forward to that. And as always, go out and try to stop some fucking money-hungry dumbasses from making an awful monster movie if you can. Check out KPF's channel, and I will see you guys in the next one. Say bye.
Bye. Damn it.